everyone, welcome back to another cast. We're in HomeStoryCup Group B. We're gonna watch HeRoMaRinE. Damn, what a mainstay. Big Gabe. Been playing for like as long as I can remember. Part of Mouse for as long as I can remember. On the other side we have Solar, actually a really fun Zerg to watch. I think he kind of rose up at the start of Legacy of the Void. That's when I started really noticing Solar. Like, obviously, him being really good with his English, being pretty funny during Home Story Cups, and honestly, his Broodlords getting nuked. It's hard to not know Solar by now. He is that type of Zerg that he's not a Serral, he's not a Dark, he's not a Rainer. But gosh darn, does he reach around a 4 and then he gets beaten. But he's always there, round of 4, round of 8. Like, you can count on this guy to put in a stable, sick performance. So I'm interested to see how this series will progress. I haven't seen it before, obviously. And so far, everything is standard. This hatchery is placed in as natural. Kind of a shame. Could have been in HeRoMaRiNE's natural to spice things up. Here, a Reaper coming out. It'll be interesting to see if he will keep mining gas after, which might indicate some more roaches. The other side, we have 1 gas for HeRoMaRiNE, so not going that super early factory type style, but rather a Reaper, a Marine, no reactor, and then factory. On the other side, we see 4 Zerglings coming out to deal with this Reaper. And also the 3rd base has gone down for Solar. Zero link kills. Nice protecting his creep tumor. If you lose that creep tumor, it can be pretty rough. See if he can catch this Reaper out. Gets a nice scout of the drone count. This can of course be faked, but we know that it isn't. Oh my, and the Reaper gets out, because apparently this is a cliff. Really cool. 3rd CC on the way. And also a starport. We have Hellions. We might see a tech lab being added on so that he can go as Banshees, but it could also be for Stim. Bit of a late second gas, so I don't expect this to be mech. Solar does have a 3rd hatchery, no drones on it yet. We have speed on the way and 1 drone in gas, just to time out his next buildings, probably. Slightly super saturating the natural, probably waiting for enough queens to actually defend both his 3rd and natural. 3rd orbital on the way, and there's indeed a Banshee. Tech club was made on the barracks. So we have Hellion Banshee with a 3rd command center behind it. Solar also playing standard on his side, just droning up his 3rd base and trying to get out his creep. Defending all of his creep with a lot of queens, with a couple Zerglings in the back. Actually a fairly low amount of Zerglings, but he's adding on more. Probably kept good tabs on the amount of Hellions. Oh, they actually get into the natural. Nice Evo block. Oh, nice around. 6 drones die. 7 drones die. He stacks them up. But the Hellions could not get an additional shot off, so that's 7 drones dead. 4 Hellions and a Reaper. But also just map control. If Solar decides to do so, he could take a 4th right now, where he has creep. with one Spore Crawler there, in case there is Cloak, which we know there is none. HeRoMaRinE is adding on a Raven and double Engineering base, starting Stim, so he's going for a quick third base, double upgrades. So we might see a Stim push later down the line with 1-1, or just some Stim Marines with Medivacs to move out and poke and prod around. Third base didn't land because of this gnarly Zergling. 4 more Hellions, that actually 8 Hellions. That can be annoying. Ooh, the Banshee in the main actually got 3 kills. But he can't do much more, not even spores by Solar. He's not impressed by these Banshees. We don't see a spore anywhere, and he gets a 4th base down. Creep is really starting to get out of hand. 1-1 upgrades for HeRoMaRinE. Back in the day, this would be a challenge for every Zerg to bailing bust the front. Because, you know, you can bailing bust, that's fun. And you all also might delay the upgrades from the Terran. Raven coming into action. Ooh, actually really nice by HeRoMaRinE, getting all the fresh tumors here in the front. But luckily Solar has a bunch of queens to just renew those. So really staying on top of his creep there. But also HeRoMaRinE trying to delay it for as much as possible. Now he's adding on a spore into the main, because he doesn't want to run back for every small thing. And we see a small push coming out. There's 2 Medivacs, there's Stim, but 1-1 is not done. So I expect HeRoMaRinE to not try and commit too much. He just wants to clear some creep, make sure that Solar stays honest, make some units as well, not just drones. Ooh, bailing speed not quite done, so HeRoMaRinE feels fine walking onto this creep. Now he has to be careful. 1-1 is about to finish though, so let's see if he starts 2-2 right away, or if he wants to pump out a couple more units to really put a little bit more oomph into his push. For now, it really seems like poking and prodding. There's, of course, no Mutalisk, so he can just lift up these Marines and get them into his Medivacs safely. Ooh, and he pressures the 5th base with this as well. Meanwhile, we also have this 1 Hellion scouting around. But now there's also going to be a lot of Hydras coming out. So he might not be able to do this a bunch more times. If the Hydras get a good position, they can, of course, snipe these Medivacs. But now HeRoMaRinE is setting up with his tanks, and he prepared for this by sniping the creep over here and pushing the creep away over here as well. You can start a siege tank push from here instead of like from here or even further back if Solar were to be allowed to just creep spread unchecked. But HeRoMaRinE is doing the checking. There could be a counterattack here, but ooh, very nice depot wall for the rally to stand behind. If there's any amount of Marines chilling here and there's this counterattack, then it will do nothing. So whilst he's pushing, he's also defending a counterattack really good. Cool by HeRoMaRinE. Oh! Small surround by Solar, really nicely done. HeRoMaRinE was unable to load up with his Medivacs because if he goes back to load them up, these Marines into his Medivacs, then they probably get sniped by the long-range Queen and Hydra anti-air. But there is no creep here, so Solar can't really chase. So even though it looked really good for Solar just now, it's a really awkward fight. This is a really hard place for Solar to engage into. And he's even setting up a flank or a counterattack with these units at the top. You see that it's really awkward for Solar to defend this. His Zerglings continuously want to run into their deaths because they get aggroed by the Marines, and then they get shelled to death by the siege tanks. And now we get the engagement that we've been waiting for. A nice Hydra bailing backstab in the back. Zerglings in the front, and the Queen's tanking a lot of tank shots. If he also loses all of his Medivacs now, that is really bad. Ooh, HeRoMaRinE lost a lot there. there is no fourth behind it, and 2-2 wasn't quite done, so you could say that's an anti-timing for HeRoMaRinE, not just a really good timing by Solar, but especially that Hydra Ling Bane Force coming from the top, really good surround. Like, it's really hard for HeRoMaRinE to then retreat, because retreating into Banelings, obviously not what you want to do. We have 2 Liberators here to kind of supplement the army and help him get a good position, but there's just so much Zerg against Solar with the surrounds in this difficult position to play in, honestly. If Terran can set up here, it's really scary, and there's no creep anymore. But Solar manages to find a way and get a really nice surround, mitigating a lot of the siege tank splash, and cleaning up HeRoMaRiNE's army really cost effectively. Now HeRoMaRiNE is kind of rally pushing, although he's not rally pushing, he is reinforcing in chunks, which is a lot more safe versus the backstabs that Solar has been trying to do. He did just start 3-3, so HeRoMaRiNE is planning to stick into this game for a little longer. Lurker Den on the way. There's also Hive, so Adrenal Glands. And 2-2 for Zerg has been completed, and he actually started +1 range. No Carapace just yet. Really interesting composition by HeRoMaRiNE. He's really trying to abuse the map here by getting all of these siege units that can really use the chokiness of this map to their advantage, and these cliffs where the Zerg just can't pass over because he doesn't have the Mutalisk. And there's also, like, HeRoMaRiNE completely denied the creep threat in this area, so it's really hard for the Zerg to engage into it right now. I think if he can keep poking and prodding until his 3-3 is finished. Oh, very nice pickup. The siege tanks get really nice shots off, basically for free. But you see Solar again preparing a nice flank to go and try push HeRoMaRiNE out of this position. Blind Clouds on the tanks, preventing any splash damage from happening, and it's really hard to retreat again into all of these Zerglings and Banelings, even though there is no creep. There's just a lot of Zerg, but HeRoMaRiNE does manage to focus down the third base with his last remaining force in the front. There's also a nice mini drop in the main, circumventing that poor Spore Crawler. As you can see, there's only been 22 drones killed, which is like 15 after those Hellions did their work. That's pretty acceptable for a Zerg. You get up to 3 to 4 base, fully saturated, and you've been allowed to make a couple extra drones or units, you're okay with losing a couple. Because you actually have the economy to remake it. Ooh, another nice Blinding Cloud on these tanks. HeRoMaRiNE being spread thin here. The Swarm is... oh, retreating onto creep? That's never good. But these more medevacs do get out. The Hydra has been thinned out quite a bit by HeRoMaRiNE. That's probably really good targeting by him. But on the other side, there's been a lot of Liberator deaths and a lot of Siege Tank deaths, which are really expensive units for HeRoMaRiNE to replace. He has managed to keep quite a few medevacs alive, but there have also definitely been a couple medevac deaths. So HeRoMaRiNE hasn't been able to retain those power units quite as well, whereas Zerg only really has the Vipers and maybe the Hydras as these power units. It is now starting to add in Lurkers. Lurker range already halfway done, and Carapace is about to finish. But there's 3 Marines on the field. Those are always scary. Those shred any Zerg unit, basically. Pew, pew, pew. Only +1 range. So these Hydras can't quite... yeah. Oh! Those spines are pretty good at cleaning up the Marines. +3 armor, and they're burrowed, which gives them even 2 more armor, I believe. Makes it really hard for Terran to clean up Lurkers. when they're burrowed with just Marines. You might want to get Marauders, tanks, or Liberators to do that. Even Ghost would be really nice, but as we can see, HeRoMaRinE is not planning on doing that. He wants to keep abusing this area, just putting tanks behind the 5th, near the 3rd, deny those 2 bases, just make it really hard for Solar to play the game, because if HeRoMaRinE ever breaks through here, it's curtains for Solar, really. 3 tanks slowly leapfrogging in, but they get yoinked in by the Vipers. Nice targeting on the Lurker. He does get them, and he keeps the Medivacs alive, but he doesn't have enough frontline right now. These Marines trying to frontline for the tanks. Still 2 tanks in the back. Shelling the drones as well on the 5th base is really scrappy right now. HeRoMaRinE is just sending in Marine after Marine, trying to break the back of Solar, but Solar is hanging in there. Even the Queens have been pulled, and HeRoMaRinE GG's out. Look at the supply and his worker count. When did that happen? 36. So whilst we were watching HeRoMaRinE do battle in the front, there was a sneaky, well not so sneaky, counterattack by Solar backstabbing him, whilst Hero was trying to backstab him, and he just lost all of his SCVs at his, well, he floated over his main base. So he was basically all in pushing, and Solar made sure that it wasn't all in by killing all of his SCVs, so HeRoMaRinE really had to get some stuff done here. And even though he did his best, he tried to pull through. He really needed to kill this 3rd base, for example, and probably also the 4th to have a chance of coming back into this game and just throwing mules to sustain his Marine count. It ended up not coming to fruition for HeRoMaRinE, and Solar closed it out. And here we are hopping into game number 2 of Solar versus HeRoMaRinE from HomeStoryCup 23, Group B. Best of 3. Top right, we have one side's Solar. Didn't mention that last game. Bottom left, we of course have HeRoMaRinE, who tried to really abuse the map last game. And Solar did have a really tough time against HeRoMaRinE clearing all of his creep and then putting siege tanks in between his 4th and 3rd base and making it really difficult to engage. But he set up really nice flanks and was able to trade effectively with HeRoMaRiNE's army. And then after that, HeRoMaRinE kind of started to run out of steam, and Solar slammed down the hammer. Like, it's really hard to push in into lurkers with just Marines and a few tanks. If he was able to sustain more of the power units, HeRoMaRinE that is, then he could have maybe pushed through. But in the end, Solar was able to maintain more of his power units in the Vipers, the lurkers, and before that even Hydras and Queens. Whilst HeRoMaRinE was kind of bleeding just too many medevacs and siege tanks, and even the Liberators. The Liberators seemed the most underwhelming, but they are strong in those positions. Especially when he's able to siege down the 4th base with 1 lib or just a siege tank. Suddenly you have the base shut down, and Solar has to push into you to regain that base. And you don't really want to push into an entrenched Terran that has a bunch of siege tanks and you don't really have creep. Or, like, you probably need 1 or 2 flanks. So we see a different build from HeRoMaRinE this time around. He went double gas with the CC and then barracks. So probably going to see a factory right away. And he plonks it down. Probably going to see a reactor right away. Yep. So we're going to see some fast Hellions, I would presume. And on the other side, Solar has made another fast 3rd base. And actually made 0 lings. He did a nice scout with his Overlord, I presume. He didn't. He just reactively makes them. So on this map, he feels like if I put my Overlord out there, the Reaper's going to compass my Overlord. Especially because HeRoMaRinE didn't SCV scout. So that's pretty big brain. Solar knows that he doesn't know if there's a early pool. So the Reaper either stays at home longer or runs across the map, both of which he would probably see with his Overlord. And so he doesn't really have to make any lings. That is pretty nifty. I think a lot of Zergs here would have just made the 4 lings and not thought about it further. But that's a nice optimization, and that's why he's slightly ahead in workers right now. 2nd factory, and he was starting the upgrades for the Cyclones and then immediately cancelled it. Probably because he needed the money to start the Cyclone, because now he restarts the upgrade. So he's going into a Hellion Cyclone, which I feel like it hasn't been that popular recently, like kind of like the battle mech style. And even a 3rd factory, another tech lab, so it's definitely the battle mech with a lot of Cyclones, which is, I've heard it described as, it's just like Bio, but it doesn't have stim, which is really great. Because as a Zerg, I always felt like it's a really hard build to deal with, because they are so cost efficient, and you just kind of, it's mech, so you make roaches. But if you just treat it like it's Bio, you just don't really make the roaches. You can actually trade really efficiently against Cyclone Hellion with just Ling Bane. But we see a bunch of roaches from Solar here. So this might be a little bit too early of an Cyclone Hellion, well, push to deal with without roaches. We also see that he's not electing to drone up his 3rd base here, so he's either going to do a big counterattack with the roaches, as we see here. Slow roaches moving forward. He wants to get in on this action before there's too many Cyclones. But the Cyclones were able to kite them back from the middle of the map all the way back to his natural. So that's a lot of free roaches, basically. You're only trading your lock-on ability for it, which I think you gladly do as the Terran. And Solar just donates a bunch of roaches. That did not look as amazing as I thought it was going to be, and now he's in a pretty difficult situation, I feel like. Has to pull all of his queens. No queens anywhere, only in the front. Because he just needs something to shield him from all of these Hellions. Because if it's just Lings, those will get barbecued. Oh, trying to get a nice surround. Oh, another Solar flank, my man. He is crazy with those. And just like that, the very scary Hellion Cyclone Force gets cleaned up by one nice flank by Solar. The flank master. And now if you're HeRoMaRinE, that's a tough position. Where is your third base? Oh, it's landing right now, never mind. You are kind of happy, maybe. You can take 2 more gases, start a couple more facts, maybe an armory or 2. But right now, he's just powering out those Cyclones and the Hellions. Infernal Pre-Igniter, and also 2 factories on the way. So he's definitely transitioning, or accounting for the extra income with those 2 facts. On the other side, we have Roach Speed finally being researched. Lair is done. 3rd base has been saturated, and 4th base has been plonked down. The creep spread is a lot more timid compared to last game. Of course, a lot of queens died, and Solar went for a pretty early attack. So maybe he expected to do a lot of damage with that attack and didn't focus as much on the creep tumors because he just had less queens. So we see the 5th and 6th gas coming out. So I was kind of expecting to see some armories, but producing from 5 factories can be pretty expensive. So with Infernal Pre-Igniter almost done, we see HeRoMaRinE maneuvering across the map to maybe, oh, very nice, denying a possible 5th base with this barracks. And now with the lock-on ability, he didn't lock on to the hatchery, actually. He locked on to some overlords, and, well, they definitely didn't all die. But it can potentially supply block Solar, especially with the roach count. Because roaches take so much supply. Ooh, and the Solar cuts off the Cyclones by using the map to his advantage, and now the SAVs have to be pulled. The roaches are flooding in, and the Cyclone count is just a little bit too low. He has not been able to keep those alive enough to really kite Solar out again and again and really get that value out of the nice Hellion Cyclone clump. Solar caught his Cyclones twice, basically, out on the map and reset the count, and then just flooded him. And, well, you can only retreat so far back until you're stuck in your natural, your main base, and then all of your bases are dying, whilst sure, your Cyclones get a lock-on on one roach, but there's 20, 30 roaches. And just like that, Solar gets his 2-0 win over HeRoMaRinE. Very impressive, honestly. I feel like HeRoMaRinE is such a sick, stable Terran that for Solar to really show such a performance is impressive to me, honestly. A treat to watch. I hope you guys enjoyed this cast. I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.